some people just post some fucking random shit on YouTube. It's not really that big of a deal. I mean, it doesn't have to be like perfect. I mean, it's kind of like if you're like a radio host for a career, it's like, well, I just got to show up Monday through Friday. It is public, so I don't know. Maybe some days like I don't take a shower before, just because I'm doing this long term for probably like 20 years, Monday through Friday, at 9 a.m. every day during the week. It's not that big of a deal. Some people think I'm funny, and they like my mentality or my viewpoint, but that's what you could do. It's just like you do like a radio show kind of that could just be brought on YouTube. I would probably think about getting some better speakers and some microphones, and they usually have like guests and like co-hosts for sure. I think the idea is not to make the guests like that important, so you know, if they come, they come, but either way, like we have a show that's entertaining regardless. It could just be the host and like his main like co-hosts, and like even that's like still gonna have people wanting to listen to it or watch it. Like the guest isn't like the star. It's like the show, like Howard Stern. It's like it doesn't matter if they have like a good guest, that adds to it. I mean, that's good, but the fans of the show like that are gonna watch the show whether they have like a good guest or not. You know, so that's live radio basically. I mean, that's like sort of like video podcasting, but like the difference would be like you don't really need the guest. The guest it's helpful, it's good, but the fans of the show like that are gonna watch or listen to the show because they like the main host and their like main co-host, just whatever they have created regardless. Like if Dave Chappelle had like a show like that, like a Howard Stern, like people would watch it. You know, they could get some like guests, but whether they have guests or not doesn't really matter. People will want to like watch a show like that. It doesn't even need to be funny. It could be like a musical talent, but musical talent usually you can be able to crack a joke every once in a while because they've been performing for over a decade, and they probably come to the realization that if you're performing on stage for 3 hours you might like break up your you might have to say a joke a few times during the show probably. You probably just learn how to do that naturally. I don't even know if they need to tell you to do it. You probably just like realize this is probably helpful. This is actually better. Not only is it helpful to say something like funny at times during a musical performance, it's actually like better in a way because you created like tension in the room in like another way, and then you can like say the opposite. You could like get a contrasting mood. But yeah, people make a living here on YouTube just talking. There's no like career, there's no like industry. You can't. They're not really in comedy. They're not in like real estate. They're not in like sales. Although they might have to shift their business to do something like that. But they're not really in like sales. They're not really in like real estate. They're not really in like really just like social skills. It's like middle school. I think it's just like but it's basically like middle school in the adult world. Kind of. But that's like a job, eventually YouTube pays you out, but like, what does YouTube pay these people out on? I know it's definitely, some people do a stream of consciousness. They just talk straight through for like 8 to 10 minutes. Some people do that, or they talk straight through for like 40 minutes. It's just continuous talking. I mean, there might be like a cut here or there. There might be like 2 or 3 places they go to, but they mostly just talk, like, and it's just their findings of I think you just have to do some type of lifestyle that's like a little bit above. Well, if you stayed in your house, you'd have to get into like movies or something. You'd have to get into like something that um, the the reason that he's at the house more is because he's got to like watch these movies basically. But I think you just need to be like entrenched in something. You need to talk about something. I probably wouldn't want to talk about sports though. Why? Because if I'm involved in sports, I'll be like, well, you should probably be in it. The reason I wouldn't want to talk about sports is because like the top thing to do in regards to sports is to be like playing it or coaching it, or if you are commenting on it, sure, yeah, that makes sense as the former player, because try to be in the room as like someone talking about sports, and you're like, oh, I'll just be a commentator, I'll just be an analyst of sports. Yeah, I mean, you better be really funny. You better be like a comedian basically, because otherwise it's like you're saying your opinions. Your opinions seem so good and seem so smart. Yeah, and then in walks the 12-year pro. Who are they going to listen to? Like, you could root for yourself as much as you want, but it's like you're talking about sports as just some outside voice who like thinks that because you played youth sports as a kid or something. But like, I think I can decipher what it is. I mean, if you can really decipher what it is, then okay, well, here's your GM, general manager job, or here's your head coach job. So it just leads there. Okay, if I really know what I'm fucking talking about, some outsider of sports, well, some team's gonna fucking want me in the fucking realm, or if I'm athletic enough, they're gonna want you to catch passes from, Jay Goff or something, and Detroit Lion. They're gonna want you to catch pass from Jay Goff on Detroit Lion or something. That's not. I was like, well, why would they not? I mean, you win. You are winning these chess matches. It's always these things. You imagine there's like, well, someone's playing chess just like while eating Oreos in their bed. But there's a handful of them that make a living doing it. I bet. Not that many. I always got to consider like how many people make a living with chess. Maybe like 13. Not that many. Compared to basketball, a few hundred. Compared to soccer, I don't know, 700 probably at least. Compared to football, 1,000 at least. I mean, so it's a pretty limited number of people. Baseball, I don't know, a couple thousand, who knows. But nowadays, it'd be a little bit different. If you're a minor league player today, like, oh, boom, like that's easy. It's not some failure that you don't make the pros, because like that's good enough to show on your YouTube channel. So now, if you're a minor league baseball player on my YouTube channel, and I'm making YouTube profits, and I just talk about Mizuno and Rawlings and the different bats that I use, or I do vlogs with my teammates. Like, here's my my funny teammates. I have a little podcast now with my teammate on the minor league team or something. So now it's not like you had to make the pros. Now I'm actually potentially, if you have the personality, like settling into being a minor league player. And it's not this like make or break, that because you have like YouTube, you can get things organized on Spotify. These things take 12 months or 24 months or something. You're kind of becoming media. The UFC does this well. I mean, look at what they do, because their incomes aren't like the highest, but it seems higher. The income's not higher on UFC, but in some cases it seems higher because they're sort of in control of their content platform. Their thing's a little bit unique because their competitors, it's kind of like rock music. It's like these are like rockers, so it's like these are loose cannons. They're gonna say whatever comes out of their whatever comes to their mind. But that's just kind of the appeal. Like, I don't think you can really do that in the NBA or NFL or MLB as much. It just depends on who's the commissioner. Maybe if D. White was the fucking commish of MLB, NBA, or NFL, then maybe he wouldn't care. Who knows? Maybe if someone like that was the commissioner, then they could do whatever or say whatever. But I'm pretty sure they're content with their salaries. the salaries seem to be working well for an exchange of food at the restaurant or an exchange of property on the real estate. So that the currency could be fake or be like questioned by certain people in the financial world and stuff like that. But simultaneously, it's like, well, I mean, it is still payment accepted. When I buy food at the grocery store, it's still payment accepted. When I drop the credit or debit card down at the restaurant, or go to buy a condo or a apartment complex or something like that. I mean, the payment's still accepted. So I think they're talking about impending doom or something. That'd be the example where you just invite the guest on. Okay, well, you bring this Kiyosaki on, or one of these people that they're like a skeptical about the financial markets, like post 2011, post 2008. Okay, let's just bring the fucking guest on. Okay, well, now you're starting to form what could be your host or your guest or whatever the fuck it is to have a show. Well, who would you have on? Well, just bring on the expert of whatever. I mean, who you're starting to form a picture in your mind of who would be like your that's why a girl's gonna like date you, is because like I'm bringing something to the table, in the sense that like maybe she's a person that can do a show like a radio show like this, even though she's making good money on her like income streams on whatever the fuck it is. But I'm like, this is something like a little bit higher. Like, this is something that like career-wise, this puts you in like a little bit better position on the chessboard or something. Maybe if you know how to talk about it right, or I'm just saying just a few things that kind of make sense. I mean, if you look at basketball, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, the NBA, it's like the top level of the top level. Like if you made it in basketball, like just being like, a starter on Temple is like, that's an accomplishment. Like you did it. You were a successful basketball player just by being like a starter at Yale or something like that, Division I, just because of like everyone that tried to play basketball, you're in the, top 1%, for sure, just by doing that. So that's like the top level of the top level. And then, yeah, I mean, they win a championship. It's cool. It's not, I mean, it's good for that. It's a good, accomplishment. Like that's the dream. That would be the dream. Like I'm a player. I get 20 minutes or more, on this team. I get, 17 to 20 minutes or more on this fucking team that wins the NBA championship, which means that you contributed. You brought the positive mentality. You made the plays when you needed to, reduce the mistakes and everything to be a championship quality, team. And then, someone's got to be the star. So someone gets to be that. It's a little bit better, but you've got you on a winning team that you're playing 20 minutes a game on this kind of like, that's all you could really hope for. That definitely means you're a top, 100 basketball player in the world, basically, at that time. Maybe not forever. I don't know if they, call you a legend, but I mean, definitely during that like 2 to 3 to 4 year block, you're definitely top 100 player of that sport. So, it's something that hits your realm. I think if you're like a 6'2", 6'3" guy, it's like something you have to consider for money. Like if you're a 6'3" guy, just kind of the difference of a life path of what you consider. Well, you're 6'3", so that means like I have all these career options in this modern day of maybe like being like a tight end or something, and be like a pass receiver potentially. I could probably do that. I could probably do like a wide receiver or something. Wide receivers play. Sometimes it might be like basketball and track and field. You see them playing football, and then it's just something different. You get a different ethic. You get this like American ethic. It seems like if you play baseball, it's just something outdoors. Gets a lot of getting a lot of sunlight, just kind of out there on the dirt. It's kind of a slow-paced thing. And then basketball, you're kind of rhyming a little bit more. You're kind of doing crossovers, and you gotta be kind of cool, kind of like rap music and smooth and stuff. That's just part of it. I mean, look at who's big or popular, is like Allen Iverson or something like that. I'm like, well, sorry, Dad. I'm gonna have to theoretically, like, if I'm playing basketball, like, to succeed in this sport means, I don't know if I'm like wearing a chain or something, but it's like I'm crossing the ball over. This is what I do to be good at the sport. Like I'm looking at someone who's good at the sport. I know what my height is. I'm not going to be 6'11" like Tim Duncan. So I'm like, this is what it looks like. It's crossovers. I got to be arrogant or braggadocious or something like that. I mean, that's kind of the way it is. And who are you going up against in basketball back in the day versus now? Now it's a little bit different. Now you have people coming through the ranks of basketball that come from like wealth in their family and stuff like that. That wasn't the case, right? Paint the picture is kind of funny for some people that came through the ranks with a little bit more like wealth behind them, and now that's the norm. Now it's not going to go back to what it was, but what it was is like the person who was the high draft pick in basketball was what their neighborhood basketball hoop was what it was built from like a milk carton posted to a tree in a low-income neighborhood, and it rains a lot. And that's what they're practicing on. And if you're a hooper that comes from the suburbs, you just fucking quit right then because, well, I can't compete with that. He's way more desperate to fucking attain the dream. And for him, it's life or death. It's like 0 or 100. He's going to probably make it happen and not me because his fucking circumstances, like it's either that or just nothing, but that's before like the iPhone and the computers, and that's before, the world kind of, spreads out and it's supposed to, grow like, I don't know, a little bit more affluence across the board, a little bit more evenness across the board of most things. When you start to see like, anyone can order food on DoorDash, which makes you like, I don't know, feel like you're doing something money-wise that's decent. I mean, anyone can, order their groceries on fucking, it's like you have like a chauffeur. And order their groceries on Instacart. So if you have enough money to do that, you can just work 80 hours to do it. Or, anyone has, like this, most people can get access to an iPhone, a recent iPhone, regardless, which gives you a chance to be like a radio host or be like any of these like media performers. So it ends up, evening out like the opportunity, because I didn't have to wait for like some favoritism at the radio studio to like give me the opportunity. Like you can just show that you're like very good, and then eventually, I mean, if you're good and you can back it, then I mean you probably get the money or the opportunity, or get hired by something a little bit more substantiated, because they see that you're putting in the work and the time, and it ends up connecting certain things for people's brains. So work on like some music, you work on like some, I don't know, rap music or rhyming, or anything that could work its way into like the music world, and then you end up having to compare yourself to I have to compare myself to like who are the ones that are known. So I compare myself, or ideally I find someone else who can do this for me, because I might be biased. It's like you go on American Idol, and back in the day you think you're good, and then you get the fucking slap in the face because you didn't have anyone really around you telling you that you were good or not. That was like unbiased and actually would be kind of a qualifier to be correct in that type of way. So people do some of these things as like life enhancement or life improvement, on the same wavelength as other people. This happens to be like a background that I might use, is like just writing stuff down onto paper. It just seems to jog the mind a little bit. I could probably just like be playing tennis, but it comes down to fucking circumstances. So you start your radio program, get enough money from that, and then you kind of veer your life into fucking tennis. And then what I say with like a sport pursuit when you're older, we'll look at like an actor that like who's gonna play like the 17-year-old on Friday Night Lights, the TV show. How old is the actor of the 17-year-old on the Friday Night Lights, the TV show? He's 29. Okay, so like that as an actor. Okay, like, so how old is the 17-year-old portrayed on Friday Night Lights, the TV show? 29 in real life. Okay, so as an actor, like, you have to do stuff like that. Okay, you might have to play someone in high school. and you're way past that. So it means you have to access these different times of life if you're an actor. That's just the reality. Okay. They want someone that knows stuff about life because they're able to, put certain things into the role that are communicated. You're like, oh, that's a good portrayal of the role, but it's unlikely that a 16-year-old would be able to play a 16-year-old in, a TV show like that, because they're trying specifically to find, people that might be older than that role, because they have more that can be communicated through these, like, I don't know, sub-communications or stuff. Like, oh, they really, like, know what's going on, or something like that, but it ends up, fitting a niche, or, having, something that you can see. But yeah, I mean, here with just something that you post here on YouTube, this is 20 minutes. I want to say this guy probably does like 40 minutes, and just him talking. It's just literally him talking. But I think what they do is they go to natural environments, like, but this guy goes for an hour. This guy goes for an hour, basically. He does once a week. Now, does he need to do it once a week? Could he do it every day? He could probably do it every day. It just depends if they want to, I don't know, make that their entire thing or not. But I think as they're doing, like, what, comedy on stage, it's like, well, that's kind of like the main thing. And then, someone who goes on stage with comedy and then they do their podcast versus someone who just does their podcast without going on stage, 9 times out of 10, the guy who, like, is going on stage is going to be funnier, because I have to submit to that. I still have to, work these crowds, which is, challenging. It's not always like a home crowd, or something like that. It's not always like a home crowd to be doing. It's the same as everything. I mean, if I want to be good with comedy, I try to, like, find a little group or nook and cranny where these guys are already kind of, like, established, and they're kind of okay with me, putting my stuff forward, because they see something in me that kind of clicks or works, and they'll kind of let me, like, get my training wheels, kind of with them. Same thing if I'm playing basketball. I'm like, you got to join the tribe. It's like Point Break. I got to join I mean, you wouldn't do this now, but, like, if you were in your late teens and you want to play basketball, you got to find, I don't know, some Point Break tribe of, like, Division I players or something, to be able to, find your way with them, become established, gain the respect of the tribe of, hoopers or something, and then, hopefully you get drafted, and then once you're, on your way, then, I mean, and now you're self-sufficient. I mean, now you got, income through it, so you could, hang around with them, or you don't need to. Then, like, that's, you join the tribe for a few years, people that might be, ahead, and then they'll let you kind of have a little footprint to gain the skill, and then, make sure you're learning or training in that way. It's kind of like finding your own college. That's like, finding your own college, just finding, like, the tribe of people that are doing something that makes money. That's a big, like, debate. It's almost like a topic you could, go on these movies with. It's basically like, young people, when they fucking try to tell young people, the impending, like, what are you going to do for work, for like, money and stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, just football leads to money. I mean, look at the NFL. It's on TV. Anyone who's on TV is, like, getting paid. So it's like, but then they question it because they're like, well, you have to be the best of the best to do that. Yeah. Prepare to do it. That's where the money is. It's like they would question it. They question a basketball, football, baseball pursuit, a actor pursuit, a rapper pursuit, a rock musician pursuit. They question it because, the teacher or the parent or something, like, your friend's parent or something. It's like, well, to play basketball, you have to be like Allen Iverson. Yep. So I got to be the best player on this team, by far. This is what, 8th grade? Yep. So the way I know I'm going to make it in basketball, I'm got to be the best player on this team, like, by a wide margin. Like, so that's the only way it could happen. So if I'm not that, yeah, that's funny. I'll do something else. Find out where you're comparatively that good. It might just be as simple as clicking into a different sport or game or endeavor, or make sure you have your instrument. Is what I tend to find now. Is I tend to reach better conclusions. Like you want to do some like musical instrument stuff. But are you going to be a classical musician? Classical musicians don't always they're not always like the ones on the charts, and the ones on the charts aren't always classical musicians. But I think the best is probably like some type of blend where like you have some real instrumentation training that people don't really know about that much. I mean, it might get mentioned here or there on some piece of how you were doing this regimented training for 8 years. Kind of falls in the background. People don't even think about it as much. But to be like a top 40 artist, like you do have to portray more of like fun or like relatability or something that connects to the crowd and the audience of them singing to whoever they're singing to. Do people really get into music like past, I don't know, their 20s? Not really. I mean, usually not. Just life's not emotional enough to even get into music. But I guess people maybe in their teenage years, this is why all the songs are geared for that. We have all these, because this is who's like the most probably within like emotions, is people probably in their teenage years and stuff like that. So that's what all the songs are pretty much based on. Or it's like clubs, like going to the other one is like people that establish their freedom around like, I don't know, 20 years old or something. They're not in like the high school bullshit. No one's telling them what to do like as much, and like, okay, well, what now? That's the other. Those are like two of the main like demographics of like music. It's like people like establishing their freedom after they get out of the fucking prison cell, their fucking high school hallways, and or it's like, or it's just that it's just something that packs some like emotion of changes, and it's supposed to be, and then they're usually older. Who's the rapper on the song talking to like the 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 20-year-old? How old is the rapper on the song? 34, right? Speaking to like the 18-year-old. So it's like there is an age gap, but it's like specifically one that can he can fit these realms to. He knows he's like an actor basically, because, and he has a singing talent, a singing ability. How old is the singer, rap guy speaking to like the 18-year-old, 17-year-old? 34, roughly. Like this is like a common thing. You'll see this. So you kind of like you have like some life experience behind it, but you have to be like kind of an actor to like put yourself in the mode, or like in the role to like put yourself in that mind, because that's who's, I wouldn't say buying the music, because they don't do that anymore, but listening to the music. Who's listening to the music? Who gets into music? Who is emotional like that? Is going to be like, I don't know, 18 years old, teenage.